Malaysia-New Zealand to enhance collaboration in numerous areas. KLIA aerotrain services set to be operational in January next year. Hello, good evening and Salam Malaysia Madani. Thanks for joining us. I'm SAHIH and you're watching Malaysia Tonight. Malaysia and New Zealand have agreed to enhance collaboration in trade, investment, research and the halal industry during a joint press conference with his counterpart, Christopher Luxon. After the two leaders held a bilateral meeting today, Prime Minister Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim said both of them have raised many issues of mutual concern and took stock of the way forward to boost bilateral relations in areas of mutual interest.
We did acknowledge the fact that it is quite unfortunate that with so much potential and such a great relationship that we have had for decades, if not for nearly a century, we're not able to take measures to enhance this sort of collaboration.
Datuk Seri Anwar today also hosted an official luncheon in honour of his visiting New Zealand counterpart Luxon at Sri Perdana. Luxon is on his first official visit to Malaysia from 1st September to 3rd September 2024, marking a significant step to further strengthen the ties between the two nations. On the other note, Datuk Seri Anwar said Malaysia has also requested New Zealand to provide more places for Malaysian students in new fields in the country.
We have benefited from these exchanges in the past. There are New Zealand students in Malaysia, but also increasing number, and we have asked him to facilitate the possibility of getting more students to New Zealand, particularly the postgraduate, in new areas where they have shown to have their expertise, including energy transition and, of course, food technology.
Meanwhile, Malaysia and New Zealand also agreed to expand bilateral trade value to 50% by 2030. New Zealand Prime Minister Christopher Luxon said both countries were working on e-certification and new customs cooperation to ensure smooth flows at the borders. Besides that, Malaysia and New Zealand also discussed strengthening education links and youth exchanges.
We've agreed to expand our trade by increasing the value of our two-way trade by 50% by 2030 and tackling the non-tariff barriers that exist between our two countries and impede the flow, particularly of our primary products, both.
On another matter, Malaysia and New Zealand have reaffirmed their commitment to regional cooperation under the Firepower Defence Arrangements FPDA. In fact, the Royal New Zealand Air Force new P-8A Poseidon aircraft will continue the long-running practice of New Zealand maritime patrol aircraft deploying to the Royal Malaysia Air Force Base Bathurst as part of the upcoming FPDA exercise with Lima. This was stated in a joint statement issued following a joint press conference between Datuk Seri Anwar and Luxon today. Both Prime Ministers valued ongoing close cooperation on countering terrorism, preventing violent extremism and combating transnational organised crime. This including through capacity building and two-way exchanges of experts. They welcome a new bilateral cooperation arrangement that would underpin this engagement and have directed officials to continue exploring opportunities for New Zealand and Malaysia to work together on strengthening social cohesion. The aerotrain at Kuala Lumpur International Airport, KLIA, is expected to begin operations by 31st January 2025. Transport Minister Anthony Loke said 2 sets of aerotrain arrived last week and are now entering the installation phase, then will enter the inspection phase after that.
Fasa ini sudah tentu mengambil masa beberapa bulan, 4 hingga 5 bulan untuk semua ujian-ujian yang diperlukan pada bulan Oktober akan bermula dynamic testing, iaitu train ini akan diuji menggunakan track yang sebenarnya, iaitu mereka akan berulang-alik.
He added Malaysia Airports Holding Berhad, MAHB, needs to closely monitor and ensure that all processes and tests are carried out properly so that there are no more delays. MAHB will receive 3 aerotrain sets and each set has 3 coaches that can accommodate a capacity of 270 passengers. He explained that the shuttle bus service that was previously used to replace the aerotrain will continue as an option for passengers due to the large passenger movements now. Malaysia Airlines confirms that flight MH66 on 1st September 2024 to Incheon, South Korea made a precautionary return to Kuala Lumpur shortly after takeoff due to a technical issues with the hydraulic system. In a statement, Malaysia Airlines informed the aircraft landed safely at Kuala Lumpur International Airport, Terminal 1 at 1:30 a.m. local time. All passengers have been accommodated at a hotel while the flight has been rescheduled to operate as MH66D departing on 2nd September 2024 at 8 p.m. local time. The return MH67D has also been rescheduled to depart at 5:10 a.m. local Incheon time on 3rd September. The safety and well-being of passengers and crew remain the airline's highest priority. Meanwhile, passengers of the cancelled Mars flight from KLIA to Seoul will be entitled to compensation. Malaysian Aviation Commission, MAVCOM, said this comes under the latest amendments to the Malaysian Aviation Consumer Protection Code, MACPC 2016, that came into effect on today. MAVCOM's Director for Consumer and Public Affairs, Pushpalata Subramaniam, said under the MACPC 2016, passengers will be entitled to refunds if their flights are rescheduled or retimed more than 3 hours from the original time.
So with the new announcement, 3 hours and more, as I mentioned, they have to give a refund in the original mode of payment. So if you paid cash, they have to return you back cash. You pay your credit card, they will reimburse your credit card. If you pay through your miles and your whatever miles and so forth, they will reimburse back the miles that you actually credited for flying there.
AirAsia today celebrated the maiden flight from Kota Kinabalu, Sabah to Manado, the capital city of North Sulawesi and the second largest city on Indonesia's Sulawesi Island. AirAsia said in a statement today the flight operated by AirAsia Malaysia departed Kota Kinabalu International Airport at 8:50 a.m. and landed at Sam Ratulangi International Airport at 11 a.m. local time. AirAsia further commented the new route reaffirms the low-cost airline's commitment to providing more travel options from Kota Kinabalu, the second largest hub in Malaysia for both domestic and international destinations, with a total of 30 routes operating 387 flights weekly as a group. This is at the same time makes it one of the main aviation hubs for this group of companies. Bank Negara Malaysia (BNM) is expected to maintain its overnight policy rate OPR at 3% this Thursday. Moody's Analytics said it expects BNM to leave rates on hold through to 2025. The research firms added the interest rate hikes in Malaysia were not as aggressive as those elsewhere in the region, and the country's benchmark rate is still lower than it was in early 2019. Therefore, BNM will likely want to sustain that trend by keeping interest rates steady. In July, Bank Negara Malaysia leaves rate unchanged at 3%. Meanwhile, Standard Chartered also anticipates Bank Negara to retain its OPR at 3.00%. This forecast is underpinned by the stable inflation trajectory observed in July, with overall inflation and core inflation registering at 2.0% and 1.9% year-on-year respectively. Recent reports indicate that Malaysia's inflation remains stable. The moderate inflation figures suggest a limited downstream impact from the rationalisation of diesel subsidies. The projected inflationary effect of the subsidy adjustment is estimated to be a marginal 0.1 percentage point. BNM is expected to maintain the OPR at its current level for the remainder of the year. However, the risk is still inclined towards a rate hike rather than a cut. Coming up, 1.12 billion ringgit allocation for improvement projects at underfunded schools nationwide. Prime Minister Dato Sri Anwar Ibrahim has instructed the Civil Service Administration to accelerate reforms immediately. Speaking at the Prime Minister's Department Monthly Assembly in Putrajaya today, Dato Sri Anwar said several aspects of government administration have yet to reach a satisfactory level. The Prime Minister stated these changes are needed to ensure that progress towards improvement can be effectively achieved.
Laporan daripada ketua-ketua jabatan, ketua pengarah, ketua-ketua unit tentang kelembaban, kecuaian beberapa pegawai itu belum ke tahap yang memuaskan. Semua ini harus kita lakukan kerana kita mesti melakukan ajakan yang sebaiknya.
He expressed that the Madani concept requires all public services to consider a broader framework, including a focus on governance, driving economic growth and public well-being. He acknowledged that there are procedures that must be followed. Nevertheless, he said new solutions must be sought to accelerate the reforms according to the demands of the time and era. The Ministry of Works has allocated 1.12 billion ringgit to implement 77 improvement projects at underfunded schools across Malaysia, including Sabah and Sarawak. Its Deputy Minister, Dato Sri Ahmad Maslan, announced that 584.7 million ringgit has been designated for 31 of these projects this year. The remaining funds are allocated for 46 projects from the previous year. Out of these projects, 2 have been fully completed. Currently, 32 projects are underway in the construction phase, while the remaining projects are in the design and procurement stages. On another note, Education Ministry MOE said Sekolah Kebangsaan Cyberjaya 2 has entered the initial phase of construction and is expected to be completed in 2027. In a statement today, MOE said the new school, which will feature 36 classrooms and various other facilities, can help elevate the issue of overcrowded schools in Cyberjaya and surrounding areas. Earlier, 12 prefabricated cabin classrooms, along with related renovations, electrical wiring, furniture, equipment and toilets were handed over to SK Cyberjaya. During the handover ceremony of the cabin modular IBS classroom at SK Cyberjaya today, the contractor formally presented the completed project to the school and the Sepang District Education Office, witnessed by the Ministry Secretary General, Dato Nik Nasaruddin Muhammad Zawawi. The project, worth 2 million ringgit, is expected to provide a short-term solution to the overcrowding issues faced by SK Cyberjaya while enhancing the comfort and learning environment for both students and teachers. The ministry added this year the government has approved the construction of 26 new schools nationwide. The University of Tsukuba, Japan, today launched its branch campus in Malaysia in partnership with University Malaya UM, making it the first ever branch campus of a Japanese university to be established outside the country. Higher Education Minister Dato Sri Dr. Zamri Abdul Qadir said the establishment of the University of Tsukuba, Malaysia, UTMY, demonstrates confidence in Malaysia, especially within the higher education sector. The establishment of UTMY would further strengthen the robust bilateral ties between the two nations, marking a new chapter in the academic collaboration. The partnership will also allow Malaysia to observe and integrate the innovative teaching methodologies and pedagogical approaches that have long been practiced in Japan. The School of Transdisciplinary Science and Design, for instance, would provide an education aimed at developing talents capable of addressing global challenges. This will benefit Malaysians at large in addressing critical issues such as artificial intelligence, health, disaster prevention, and environmental sustainability. Johor Marine Police seized 3.31 million ringgit worth of lobster seedlings when foiling an attempt to smuggle them out of the country yesterday. Acting District Police Chief Deputy Superintendent Muhammad Samshuri Muhammad said the Marine Police Intelligence Unit, acting on intelligence and surveillance, intercepted and halted a fibre boat around noon in Tanjung Merak. He added despite the attempt to smuggle the seedlings out of the country, police investigation revealed the syndicate behind the illicit operation had sourced the seedlings from foreign supplies for both the local and international market distribution. During a thorough inspection on the vessel, Marine Police uncovered 46 foam boxes filled with lobster seedlings. Police arrested the 49-year-old local boatman and seized a boat and two engines worth 240,000 ringgit, handed over to the Johor State Fisheries Department. The total seizure is valued at 3.55 million ringgit. The case is being investigated under Section 40 of the Fisheries Act 1985, which pertains to the illegal import, export and transportation of fishery products without a permit. Up next, Elon Musk Starlink defies order to block X in Brazil. United Arab Emirates UAE has reportedly signed an agreement with UNICEF to allocate $7 million to provide emergency food aid in connection with the crisis in Sudan. Of these funds, $6 million is intended for Sudan and $1 million for South Sudan. It is noted that 17.7 million people in Sudan and 7.1 million people in South Sudan suffered from food insecurity. Earlier, the UAE Foreign Ministry said that the country had already financed 70% of its US $100 million pledge at an international conference in April in support of Sudan and neighboring countries. Since 15 April 2023, fierce fighting has been going on in Sudan between the Rapid Response Force and the regular army. The International Committee of the Red Cross stated that the ongoing fighting in the country could lead to outbreaks of disease and a fatal collapse of the healthcare system. According to the UN, more than 8.2 million people in Sudan have fled their homes due to the fighting, of which about 1.7 million have fled to neighboring countries. Azerbaijan's ruling party was set to retain its majority in Sunday's snap parliamentary election. It was the first parliamentary vote since Azerbaijan recaptured Karabakh, where ethnic Armenians had enjoyed de facto independence for 3 decades since the collapse of the Soviet Union. President Ilham Aliyev's party was on course to win 67 out of 125 seats in the parliament, based on 91% of the vote count, nearly on par with the 69 seats in the outgoing parliament. Just over 2 million people in Azerbaijan voted, bringing the turnout at the time of the close of polling stations to 37.3%. According to exit polls, dozens of other seats were set to go to candidates who are nominally independent but in practice support the government and to minor pro-government parties. Aliyev, in power since 2003, moved swiftly to capitalize on that victory and won a 5th presidential term in February with more than 92% of the vote, according to election authorities. Indian authorities on Sunday diverted a domestic flight to an airport in India's western state of Maharashtra following a bomb threat. The Indigo flight from Jabalpur in Madhya Pradesh to Hyderabad in Telangana was diverted to Nagapur in Maharashtra following a bomb threat message found inside the aircraft. According to officials, all the passengers and crew were deported and the aircraft was subjected to a thorough check. However, the quick response team did not find anything suspicious inside the plane. The incident is the latest among a series of hoax bomb threats that have been sent to school, airport, shopping malls and hospitals in the country, including Delhi. In June, India's Civil Aviation Security Body, the Bureau of Civil Aviation Security, proposed a 5-year flying ban on those who issue such threats. Elon Musk is doubling down on his fight with Brazilian authorities. For weeks, the billionaire has refused to comply with Brazilian court orders to suspend certain accounts on his social network X. In his latest move, Starlink, the satellite internet service controlled by Musk that has 250,000 customers in Brazil, told the country's telecom agency that it would not comply with orders to block X. The retort further escalated a dispute that has already had consequences for millions of Brazilians and for Musk's business, and it suggested that Musk is not prepared to back down anytime soon. After Brazil's Supreme Court ordered X blocked in the country last week, he suggested that Brazilians use software to circumvent the ban, despite the risk of large fines that a judge has threatened to impose for doing so. The move also illustrated the sheer power of Mas and his business empire, having built leading companies with increasing control over how people connect and communicate. Pope Francis embarked on a 12-day trip to Southeast Asia, the longest and farthest of his papacy, that will challenge the 87-year-old increasingly fragile health. The pontiff will fly overnight and arrive on Tuesday in Jakarta, Indonesia, before heading to Papua New Guinea, East Timor and Singapore. Francis will take most of the first day in Jakarta to recover from the flight, and the next day hold talks with outgoing President Joko Widodo, as well as meetings with a group of youth, diplomats and local clergy. The 4 countries on the tour are very different, but the Pope will seek to bolster ties with each of their Catholic communities and their governments. The trip, his 45th abroad, was originally planned for 2020 but postponed due to the COVID pandemic. He has not travelled abroad since visiting Marseille in France in September last year, having cancelled a planned address at United Nations climate talks in Dubai 2 months later. Up next in sports, onslaught passes Manchester United test easily. 6 times MotoGP champion Marc Marquez stormed to victory at the Aragon Grand Prix in front of his home crowd, while Francesco Bagnaia crashed out after a clash with Alex Marquez. The 31-year-old Marquez, who claimed his 8th Aragon pole on Saturday, took the checkered flag almost 5 seconds ahead of fellow Spaniard and World Championship leader Jorge Martin for his first win since the 2021 Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix. Red Bull Gas Tag's 20-year-old Pedro Acosta completed the podium after Italy's twice MotoGP champion Bagnaia collided with Marquez's brother Alex on lap 19 of the 23-lap race. The crash helped Martin extend his lead over second-place Bagnaia and the Riders' Championship to 23 points ahead of next weekend's San Marino MotoGP in Santa Monica, Cella, Italy. 2 goals from Luis Diaz and 1 from Mohamed Salah helped Liverpool's roll to a 3-0 victory at Manchester United, with Erik ten Hag's side humbled by their fierce rivals early this morning. Liverpool dominated a United team who could not keep pace with them in the first half. The visitors took the lead in the 35th minute through a back post header from Diaz after United midfielder Casemiro had given the ball away. Casemiro was again at fault for Diaz, and Liverpool's second, again supplied by Mohamed Salah, with the Colombia international sweeping home 3 minutes before the break, sending United supporters off for the halftime refreshments early. Mohamed Salah got his customary goal against United on 56 minutes to rub salt in the home side's wounds. The Egyptian's stunning finish from Dominic Szoboszlai pass was his 15th goal in 16 meetings against the Red Devils. However, he again hinted the season could be his last for Liverpool, with less than 12 months left to run on his contract. Meanwhile, in Spain, Kylian Mbappe answered his critics in style as he netted his first La Liga goals to give Real Madrid a 2-0 win over Real Betis at the Santiago Bernabeu, sending them second in the table. Since scoring the UEFA Super Cup against Atlanta, new signing Mbappe had failed to find the back of the net in Madrid's opening 3 games in La Liga, prompting criticism in the Spanish press. Mbappe was made to wait for his goal as he squandered a series of chances, finally finding the back of the net in the 67th minute, sweeping the ball past the Betis goalkeeper with his left foot after a well-timed back heel from Fede Valverde. 8 minutes later, the France captain added a second from the penalty spot and was cheered off the field when he was replaced by Luka Modric in the 84th minute. Madrid's 2-0 win takes them second in the table with 8 points, 4 behind early leaders Barcelona. That concludes this edition of Malaysia Tonight. In our top story, Malaysia-New Zealand to enhance collaboration in numerous areas. Till then, I'm SAHIH Samsudin, Malaysia Madani, Jiwa Merdeka. Thank you for watching and have a good night.